The impossible volunteer. The warning klaxons have been silent for 3 standard cycles now, but the red emergency lighting still bathed the observation deck of Sinan Research Station in an ominous glow. Dr. Zilthak adjusted his environmental suit with nervous precision, his scaled hands trembling slightly as he reviewed the radiation readings for the 1000th time. The numbers hadn't changed, and they still defied every known principle of biological survival. Below them, the planet Korith 7 rotated slowly, its once blue surface now a patchwork of sickly yellow and brown. The nuclear catastrophe that had consumed 3 major cities wasn't just a local disaster anymore. It had become the greatest scientific challenge the Galactic Research Council had ever faced. The radiation levels were so extreme that even their most advanced robotic probes failed within hours of deployment. Commander Vorthek, a towering Zentorian with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian, paced behind the observation windows with military precision. His species had survived the gamma-ray storms of the Andromeda frontier, yet even he couldn't contemplate setting foot on that contaminated world below. The latest probe lasted exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes before complete systems failure, reported Dr. Melitha, her crystalline form flickering with bioluminescent stress patterns. As a member of the silicon-based Christoids, she could withstand temperatures that would vaporize most organic life, but radiation was another matter entirely. We've lost 47 robotic units in 2 cycles. The contamination is simply too severe for any known technology to operate. Dr. Zilthak nodded grimly. His own species, the Saurians, had evolved on a world with naturally occurring radioactive crystals, giving them moderate resistance to radiation exposure. But what they were seeing on Korith 7 wasn't moderate anything. The readings showed radiation levels that would kill him in minutes, even with full protective gear. "We need those mineral samples," Commander Vorthek stated flatly. The unique crystalline formations created by the disaster could revolutionize our understanding of matter itself. But we cannot sacrifice lives for scientific curiosity. That's when the communication console chimed with an incoming message from the personnel bay. Dr. Zilthak activated the display, expecting another report about equipment failure. Instead, he found himself looking at a form he'd never seen before, a volunteer application. "This must be an error," he muttered, scanning the document. "It says here that someone is volunteering for surface deployment to Korith 7. The application was signed by Captain Elena Vasquez, human, age 29, occupation, nuclear engineer, Earth Colonial Marine Corps. Attached were her credentials and medical records, along with a note that made Dr. Zilthak's throat sacs constrict with disbelief. Ready for immediate deployment. Standard protective gear adequate. Commander Vorthak's 4 eyes focused on the screen with laser intensity. A human. From the newly contacted world they call Earth. This must be some kind of administrative mistake. Dr. Melitha's form brightened with curiosity. "Actually, Commander, I've been reviewing the files on this species. They seem unusual. Their planet is classified as a Class 12 death world, but they show no signs of the typical adaptations we'd expect." Before anyone could respond, the bay doors hissed open and Captain Elena Vasquez walked in. She was smaller than most of the alien researchers, standing barely 1.7 meters tall, with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and wearing a standard-issue jumpsuit that looked almost casual compared to the heavy environmental suits everyone else required just to be near the viewing windows. "Captain Vasquez reporting for the Korith 7 mission," she said with a confidence that made Dr. Zilthak's scales ripple with unease. "I've reviewed the radiation readings and contamination reports. When do we begin?" The silence that followed was profound. Commander Vorthek was the first to find his voice. "Captain, I believe there has been a misunderstanding. The radiation levels on Korith 7 are lethal to all known forms of life. Our most radiation-resistant species cannot survive more than minutes of exposure, even with full protective equipment." Elena tilted her head, studying the readouts on the main display. "These readings, they're high, sure, but I've worked in worse conditions. The Fukushima cleanup operation was pretty intense, and we spent weeks in the hot zones there. This looks comparable to some of the reactor maintenance work I did on Luna Base. Dr. Zilthak felt his world shift slightly. Captain, you have been exposed to lethal radiation before. Lethal? Elena laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both reassuring and terrifying. Doc, I grew up in Colorado, near the old uranium mines. My hometown sits on a natural radon field. Background radiation there is higher than what you're showing me for parts of this planet. We actually have to build special ventilation systems in our basements to keep the radon levels manageable. The research team exchanged glances that would have been comical if the situation weren't so serious. Dr. Melitha's crystalline form was pulsing rapidly, indicating extreme agitation. Captain Vasquez, your species evolved in a naturally radioactive environment. Evolved might be a strong word, Elena replied, pulling up a chair with casual ease. Earth's got uranium deposits everywhere, cosmic radiation from space, radioactive elements in our water and soil. We've been dealing with it for so long that we've gotten pretty good at it. Plus, we've been using nuclear technology for over a century now. Controlled exposure is part of basic medical treatment where I come from. Commander Vorthek's military mind was reeling. You deliberately expose yourselves to radiation. Cancer treatment, medical imaging, sterilization procedures, power generation. Elena counted off on her fingers. My grandmother had targeted radiation therapy when I was young. Saved her life. My own medical records show I've had probably a dozen CT scans, a few nuclear medicine procedures. It's routine healthcare. Dr. Zilthak was frantically accessing the human medical database they'd received during first contact. What he found made his hands shake. Humans routinely survived radiation doses that would be fatal to most galactic species. Their medical procedures involved intentionally irradiating their own bodies. Some of their industrial workers were exposed to radiation levels that exceeded galactic safety standards by orders of magnitude. This is impossible, he whispered. According to our biological models, your species should not exist. Elena stood up and moved to the viewing window, looking down at the contaminated planet with the same expression someone might use while checking the weather. Look, I understand your concern, but you're overthinking this. Yes, it's a hot zone down there. Yes, I'll need to be careful about exposure time and make sure I'm monitoring my dosimeter. But this is exactly the kind of work I trained for. She turned back to the stunned research team. I spent 2 years cleaning up the Mars terraforming accident, and that involved working directly with damaged fusion reactors. I've done emergency repairs inside active nuclear submarines. Last month, I volunteered for the asteroid mining operation near the Jupiter radiation belt. This is what humans do. The casual way she mentioned surviving situations that would kill entire starship crews was perhaps the most unsettling thing of all. Dr. Zilthak realized he was looking at something unprecedented in galactic history, a species that had turned a death world into a training ground. Captain, Commander Vorthek said carefully, if you are truly capable of surviving surface deployment, this mission could change everything we understand about biology and adaptation. Elena smiled. Commander, I'm not just capable of surviving it. I'm looking forward to it. Some of my best work has been done in high radiation environments. There's something about the challenge that brings out the best in our engineering. As she began reviewing the mission parameters with the same enthusiasm most beings reserved for discussing vacation plans, the alien research team came to a startling realization. They weren't just dealing with a species that could survive in impossible conditions. They were dealing with a species that thrived in them. The warning klaxons might have been silent, but a new kind of alarm was ringing in the minds of every researcher present. If humans could treat this death world as merely another workplace, what did that say about the rest of the galaxy's assumptions about the limits of life itself? The death world truth. The descent to Korath 7's surface took 18 minutes, and Elena spent most of it reviewing geological surveys, while her alien observers monitored her vital signs with growing amazement. Dr. Zilthak had insisted on a full medical monitoring array, with sensors tracking everything from cellular activity to neural function. What they were seeing defied explanation. Radiation exposure increasing, reported Dr. Melitha from the orbital station. Current levels at 200 roentgens per hour and climbing. Captain Vasquez, how are you feeling? Alina's voice came through clearly, without even a hint of strain. Feeling fine. My personal dosimeter is reading similar numbers. I'll start getting concerned if we hit 500 roentgens per hour for extended periods, but we're nowhere near that threshold yet. Dr. Zilthak nearly dropped his monitoring tablet. 500 roentgens per hour was enough to kill most galactic species in minutes. For Alina, it was merely a number to watch. The landing pod touched down in what had once been the industrial district of Korith 7's largest city. Through the external cameras, they could see the twisted remains of buildings, the ground cracked and glowing with an eerie phosphorescence that spoke of atomic fire. Alina emerged from the pod wearing nothing more than a standard radiation suit that would have been inadequate protection for a Galactic Council janitor cleaning up minor spills. Surface conditions confirmed, Alina reported, her voice steady and professional. Radiation levels are elevated but manageable. Visibility is good, no immediate atmospheric hazards. Beginning sample collection from grid reference Alpha 7. As she moved through the devastated landscape, the monitoring equipment painted a picture that should have been impossible. Her cellular regeneration was not just keeping pace with radiation damage, it was exceeding it. Her body was actually improving its resistance as exposure continued. Captain, Dr. Zilthak called through the communication system. Your cellular repair mechanisms are functioning at rates we've never documented. How is this possible? Alina knelt to collect a crystalline sample, her movements casual and efficient. Human cells have pretty robust repair systems, Doc. We've had to develop them over millions of years of evolution. Earth throws a lot at us: cosmic radiation, solar flares, natural radioactive decay. Our bodies got good at fixing themselves. Commander Vorthak was reviewing Alina's personnel file with increasing bewilderment. Captain, your records indicate you were born in a place called Death Valley. Is this name accurate? Oh yeah. Alina chuckled, carefully storing another sample. Death Valley gets up to 54 degrees Celsius in summer, hottest air temperature ever recorded on Earth. I used to go camping there with my family when I was a kid. Great place to stargaze, once you get used to the heat. The alien research team fell silent. 54 degrees Celsius was beyond the survival threshold for most known species, yet Alina spoke of it like a pleasant vacation destination. Captain, Dr. Melitha interjected, her crystalline form flickering with rapid calculations. What would you consider genuinely dangerous environmental conditions? Alina paused in her sample collection, considering the question seriously. Well, uncontrolled nuclear criticality would be a problem. Direct exposure to a reactor core breach, maybe. Category 5 hurricanes are pretty nasty. Winds over 250 kilometers per hour, but humans live through those regularly. Volcanic eruptions can be tricky, depending on how close you get to the lava flows. She continued working while she spoke, moving deeper into the contaminated zone without apparent concern. Earthquakes can be challenging, especially the big ones over magnitude 8. Tornadoes are dangerous if you're caught in the open. Flash floods. Avalanches. We got a saying on Earth: if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger. Dr. Zilthak was frantically cross-referencing Alina's casual mentions with galactic disaster classifications. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions. Each of these was classified as an extinction-level event for most civilizations. Alina was listing them like minor inconveniences. Captain Vasquez, he said carefully, you mentioned that Death Valley was hot. What temperatures are considered normal where you grew up? Colorado. Pretty mild, actually. Winter temperatures drop to about -30 Celsius. Summer gets up to around 40. Nothing extreme. My cousin lives in Siberia where it regularly hits -50 in winter. My other cousin works in Dubai, where it's over 45 degrees most of the summer. Humans adapt pretty well to temperature variations. The research team was beginning to understand that their fundamental assumptions about habitability were catastrophically wrong. What they considered extreme environmental conditions, humans called Tuesday. Elena had moved into the most heavily contaminated section of the city, where their robotic probes had failed within hours. Her radiation exposure was now at levels that should have killed her several times over, yet her vital signs remained stable, even improving in some categories. "Doc, I'm seeing some really interesting crystalline formations here," Elena reported, her voice filled with professional enthusiasm. "The radiation has created some unique molecular structures in the local minerals. This could actually be valuable for industrial applications back home." "Elena," Dr. Zilthak said, then paused, realizing he'd used her first name. "Captain, you're currently being exposed to radiation levels that would be fatal to every known galactic species. Yet you're treating this as routine work." "It is routine work," Elena replied matter-of-factly. "This is actually less dangerous than some of the cleanup operations I've done on Earth. The Chernobyl exclusion zone, the Hanford site cleanup, the 3 Mile Island maintenance. This is what nuclear engineers do. We go places that are too dangerous for normal people and make them safe again." She collected another sample, her movements precise and professional. "Besides, this isn't even close to the most dangerous job I've had. I spent 6 months working on a damaged space station in the Van Allen radiation belt. Now that was intense. Or the time I had to do emergency repairs on a fusion reactor during a solar storm. That was exciting." Commander Vorthak was reviewing human occupational safety records with growing horror. Humans routinely worked in environments that would be classified as uninhabitable death zones by galactic standards. They didn't just survive in these conditions, they volunteered for them. "Captain," he said slowly, "your species appears to have weaponized adversity." Elena's laughter carried clearly through the communication system. "That's one way to put it, Commander. We prefer to think of it as making the best of a bad situation. Earth doesn't make survival easy, so we got good at surviving. Really good." As she continued her sample collection, moving through areas where the radiation levels peaked at nearly 1,000 roentgens per hour, the alien research team came to a profound realization. They had been thinking about the human species all wrong. Elena wasn't an exceptional individual. She was a typical example of what happened when evolution occurred on a world that was actively trying to kill its inhabitants. "Mission complete," Elena announced, her sample containers full and her vital signs still showing no distress. "All requested materials collected, full geological survey completed. Ready for extraction." As the retrieval pod descended to collect her, Dr. Zilthak found himself looking at his own homeworld with new eyes. Sorius Prime, with its mild radiation fields and stable climate, suddenly seemed almost absurdly safe. The entire galactic civilization had developed on what humans would probably consider garden worlds, places so benign that the inhabitants never developed the survival instincts that Elena demonstrated as casually as breathing. "Captain Vasquez," he said as Elena boarded the retrieval pod, "on behalf of the Galactic Research Council, I want to thank you for completing an impossible mission." Elena settled into her seat, pulling off her radiation hood to reveal hair slightly damp with perspiration, but eyes bright with satisfaction. "Doc, it wasn't impossible. It was just a job that needed doing. Where I come from, we have a saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going." As the pod ascended toward the orbital station, carrying samples that would revolutionize galactic science and a human who had made the impossible look routine, the alien researchers began to understand something fundamental about Earth and its inhabitants. They weren't dealing with a species that had survived on a death world. They were dealing with a species that had turned a death world into a launching pad for exploring an even more dangerous universe. And that realization would change everything the galaxy thought it knew about the limits of life, the meaning of courage, and the true definition of impossible.